What's going on, guys? My name's Chris. You are watching Raising the Bar, and today we're going to be talking about communication. Now, communication is the art of building relationships. And if you are a bad communicator, you're going to fail in building relationships, sustaining relationships, and it's really just not going to work out too well for you. Today, what we're going to talk about is some of the ways that we can help build a solid foundation for our communication skills. We're going to start off real basic here at first. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how do you converse with somebody properly? Let's say you run into somebody you don't know, you're meeting them for the first time. How do you go about building rapport? How do you go about establishing that relationship? All right, so the first thing and the first tip that I have for you is ask questions about them. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. So when you ask somebody a question, it could be something basic like, hey, what do you do for work? Or a question that I love asking people, what are you passionate about? It'll get them to open up. And then from there, you can utilize their response to spin off into something else. So if somebody says that they're passionate about, let's say, hiking, I'd be like, where's your favorite place to hike? So now you started off at a first level, and now you're going to a second level. And then they're going to be like, oh, my favorite place to hike is at this park or this mountain. And say, oh my God, I've heard about that place. Do you have any pictures? Let me take a look. Anything just to keep them engaged, because the goal initially is to figure out what somebody's interested in and then play off of that interest level to continue the conversation. And then after a while, you can actually start to weave this web where you can bring it back to you. So they start talking about that mountain. You can be like, have you ever been to Purgatory Chasm? They're in Western Massachusetts. No, I've never been. Oh my God, it is the coolest thing, man. They have these underground caves. It's the coolest place. You got to check it out. And just keep the conversation going. But initially, keep the focal points on what they're interested in, because it's going to maintain their interest, and it's also going to show that you're interested in what they have to say. And that's what we want to accomplish here. We want them to feel as if we value them as a person, we value what they're trying to say, and that will help build the rapport. You understand what I'm saying there? So, you initially meet somebody, you're throwing out these questions, and that's how you're continuing the conversation, is by questions. If you speak to somebody and they ask you a question and you provide them with, let's say, a one-word response with no follow-up. So if somebody says, how was your day? And you say, good. Well, that's usually not the typical response. Typically what you'd say is, oh, my day's going great. How's yours? This is a question at the end. So it's a series of responses and questions that are going to ultimately perpetuate a conversation. Now, there are times where it can be challenging to continue a conversation with somebody, if they're not engaged, or maybe if they're just not giving you a lot of meat to chew on. In that situation, you could pluck from basic things. Like, hey, have you ever seen this movie? Or have you ever been to this place? Or start a conversation using a baseline topic that's applicable to most people. So that way you could have something to build upon. But when you're conversing with somebody, what you really want to focus on is establishing that foundation of your communication. Because by doing that, you'll be able to perpetuate a conversation, build the relationship, and hopefully, earn friends as a result. But if you struggle with communicating with people, I really think it's a valuable skill to focus on and develop. Because having the ability to walk up and speak to any single person out there and instantly be able to strike up a conversation and build a rapport with them, that is a skill that is very important to develop as early as possible, because it'll allow you to open up doors for yourself, be it in your relationships or maybe in business. There's various avenues that you could go down there, but I want you to be confident and comfortable going into a conversation with somebody you don't know, because that's an opportunity for you to get to know somebody else, and it also provides you with practice for your communication skills. Where this really comes into play and becomes really important is in the dating world. So if you go on your first date, and let's say, for instance, you're on a date with a girl, and all you do is talk about yourself, guess what? She's probably going to tell you she had a bad time. When you go on a date with somebody, the main goal is to get them talking more than you. That's true with any conversation. If you're speaking to somebody and you're engaging them to the point where they're speaking more than you are, you're doing your job right. Or maybe they're just chatty, but let's say you're doing your job right. You know what I'm saying? So If you're having that conversation, they're spewing like a fire hose, they're talking nonstop, you know you're doing good. Keep them going. Keep that positive energy rolling. So when you're on a date, for instance, and you're sitting there and you're across from somebody that you're interested in, maybe you met them on Tinder or Bumble or any kind of app, or maybe you just went up to them in the grocery store, got their number, and now you got them on a date. Well, you got to build that conversation. You got to establish the foundation of that relationship. And it's going to happen by your conversational ability. So you begin asking questions. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, to interview somebody. There's a big distinction there. Because if you say that, if you do it that way, then you come across as robotic. So there should be a statement and then a follow-up. Or you could redirect it back to yourself. Let's say you're at a sushi place, for instance. What's your favorite sushi place? Oh, I've never had sushi before. Oh my God, you're gonna love it. You want to take a look at the menu? Let me show you what I'd recommend. Pull out the menu. Be like, have you ever had spicy tuna maki? Oh my God, it's so good. So that animation and that excitement level is contagious. So when you elevate the energy through a conversation, it can sometimes diffuse any nerves that somebody else might have. And it's like laughing, right? When somebody laughs, you end up laughing. That contagious energy. So if you can go into that type of environment and you can emanate this positive energy, if you find it difficult to communicate with somebody, they'll ultimately open up. Now, there's a fine line here because you don't want to be too over the top, because then they'll just be like, hey, what's wrong with that guy? So you don't want to be like that. But, you want to do your best and you want to keep people engaged. So back to the whole dating situation there. So you sit down with the girl, maybe she's not talking too much, she's not talking to you. Just start off with basic topics. That's the best thing that you can do. Say, what are you passionate about? Hopefully you didn't already cover that because you've been texting her for 5 days. By the way, don't make that mistake. If you do make contact with a girl, don't text her every single day leading up to your date, because then you're not gonna have as much to talk about. Set a date, act like you're busy, and keep it moving. That's my recommendation there. So that way when you do get on the date, you'll have tons to talk about and it'll be a little bit more exciting. So you sit down, you're having some great dialogue, and then maybe you could get a little fun with the conversation. And let's say the conversation's dying. Say, all right, I got a question for you. Serious question. If you could pick one actor to go away on vacation with, who would you pick? Something random, right? You don't have to use that question, but something that's completely silly and ridiculous. And you could tease them. So if they say, oh man, I want to go away with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, really? Come on. He's had like 3 good movies, and if clearly that's going to be one of their favorite actors, they'll be like, 3 good movies, you know what I mean? But now you just got emotion. And it's just teasing, it's all in fun. But that's the art of communication, is you got to understand how to engage people, how to get people excited, and how to kind of manipulate the emotional state, because that'll keep the flow in a positive direction. So the best way that I could recommend to practice this is to interact with everybody that you see that's in an area where it makes sense. So a good example of this is a waiter at a restaurant. Hey, what's going on, man? How's your day? And then get them to open up. I do this all the time when me and my girl go out. She kind of hates me for it, but we were at a pizza place and I asked this girl, because she had a little Disney pin on. I said, you have a Disney pin? When was the last time you went to Disney? And she was like, oh, we just went a few months ago. And I was like, you just went a few months ago? I imagine the lines would be crazy because of the social distancing. And she's like, you have no idea, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, she's chatty Cathy, right? But it's that probing and picking up on subtle things. The body jewelry piece or something about somebody is a great way to start a conversation. Someone has a bracelet on, take a look at it, make a note of it. There's so many different ways to spark conversations, but it's going to take practice and it's going to take a level of comfortability on your behalf in order to be able to facilitate this and practice this over and over. But I promise you, as you go through and you go through this exercise and you complete it, your ability to communicate with people will be vastly improved to the point where when you do get down to those situations, be it a job interview, maybe a business meeting with a client, or maybe with a date that you're on, it'll be so much easier for you to organically build a fluid conversation than ever before. So I hope you guys like this video. Just a few tips on communication. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at rtbtransformations.com. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Hit that little bell button right now. I really appreciate it. And with that, guys, I'm out of here.